Hello, hello. It's episode 313 of your favorite daily podcast, A Couple of Things, a podcast about things. And today I'm going to be talking about a very annoying thing that happened to me recently in my Dutch speaking and blah 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 life. Let's get into it. So, as you know, I have been learning Dutch this year. I've stopped with my classes because of school. But I've done some like speaking things recently and plan to keep going to like language cafes and whatever I can find where I can practice my speaking. And in my day to day I try as much as possible wherever I can to speak Dutch. And so I've been doing some interviews just to see just I've been doing interviews and many of these interviews I've been doing in Dutch. And I had one recently where the person I spoke to was talking really, really fast. Like, Dutch people speak fast when they speak in Dutch. Like, they speak really fast, generally. But this guy it was almost like I couldn't hear anything he was saying. And then I asked him to speak slower a bit. All in Dutch, by the way. Like, this whole conversation was happening in Dutch. And I asked him to speak a bit slower. And he's like, are you sure your Dutch is really B1? Because like that's the thing, right? It's like the idea is that if you speak at least B1, you should be able to understand when people are speaking fast. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure, because like I'm talking to people every day in Dutch and I can understand them clearly. I can hear them clearly. Because this is not a matter of like I don't understand you. I just can't hear what you're saying. Before I can even talk about understanding, I can't hear you. So I'm like in Dutch. I'm like I talk to people every day in Dutch and I can hear them, but you are speaking really fast. And then this goes on. We go on with the interview, and then after a while, he's like, because I asked him to repeat himself a few times, and then he was like, that he doesn't think I'm at P1 level, and for the role they require P1 level. And I was like, that's interesting, because mind you, I've had like a couple more other interviews, and some of this is for volunteer work, because like I used to volunteer a lot before when I was in Nigeria, and when I moved here I didn't really know where to start from or what to do, and I didn't have the time, to be honest. But now that I have a bit more free time, I looked into it again. I found an organization that helps you get placed with organizations that need volunteers. And so some of these interviews are with like volunteer organizations, and I've had like a couple of interviews with these people as well in Dutch, and every time they're remarking about how good my Dutch is. Like, wow, your Dutch is really good, and you really like you pronounce the words really well, blah blah blah, your vocabulary is great, everything. So when I had this other interview where the guy was like, yeah, I don't think your Dutch is a B1, I was like, this is interesting, because this is the opposite of everything everyone who I have been speaking to has said. Because everyone's like, wow, your Dutch is so good, you've only been here 3 years, I can speak, so, which is nice. Like, it feels really good to hear that, because it's like, oh great, it's like I actually have learned the language to a point. I mean, there's still sometimes where I struggle with like remembering words, or I don't have the right word because I haven't learned it yet, because it's like something that is totally new to me. But in general, I feel pretty confident. Well, I'm still always shy about speaking, but I try anyways. But generally, I actually do feel pretty confident about like day-to-day conversations in Dutch. And the role that I was interviewing for, the person was like, my Dutch is not great enough. It wasn't even like a thing where I would have to talk to people all the time and have like serious, deep conversations. It would just be like basic conversation, like just every day. I feel like if somebody who speaks Dutch at A1 will be fine because it's not anything serious like that. So I was just like a bit annoyed by that whole experience, but I didn't really think much out, because I was in the midst of like struggling with homework that I had to submit, which is a whole other thing that maybe I'll talk about, because honestly I went through last week. But anyway, so it was just a bit annoying to be dismissed in that way, and especially given the fact that in other contexts and with a lot of other people, everyone is like, oh, your Dutch is good. Because before I had the interview with that person, that was my second kind of interview for that role. The first person I had spoken to on the phone, the like recruiter that called me, we had the whole conversation in Dutch, and we moved on to the next stage, which was with the person who I spoke to that said my Dutch is not good enough. But anyway, I don't know why this thing bothered me so much and annoyed me so much, because even after that, I had other conversations where people remarked about my Dutch being really good as well. But that one really bothered me, and I don't know why, because it was very, very annoying. Sha. I don't know why this is what I decided to talk about today, but this was what was on my mind today, and it really, really, really pissed me off, because I was like, "What do you mean? Like we're having a conversation. I'm responding to you in Dutch, and also not with like basic vocabulary. I'm actually intentionally choosing the big words that I know to speak to you, and I'm not like umming and ahhing. Like that's probably one of the more fluent interviews I've had, because I was like, because in the job description they had made it very clear that you need to have B1 minimum, and so I was like very, very careful about not taking too long pauses and speaking, like using my B1 vocabulary that I couldn't remember. And we're having this conversation. I'm understanding your questions. I'm responding to your questions. But because I asked you to speak slower, because no, really, this guy was speaking really, really fast. But yeah, I guess that's it. That's today's episode. Thank you for listening to my random rant about a day in my Dutch learning and speaking life. On to the number facts. There are 52 days left in the year, also 52 episodes to go. 52 is also the number of weeks in a year. 52 is also the number of white keys on a keyboard, I assume. This fact is incomplete, but I assume it's a keyboard. And 52 is the number of cards in a standard deck of playing cards if you exclude the Joker cards. Today is also November 9. And today in 1967, the first issue of the Rolling Stone magazine was published. And today in 1857, yes, 1857, the Atlantic newspaper was founded in Boston. And this is episode 313, which is the number of intersections when all the diagonals of a regular dodecagon are drawn. And a dodecagon is a 12-sided shape. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode of A Couple of Things. If there was anything you found interesting or insightful, or you enjoyed the episode, please do share to someone or multiple people. Like, leave a comment, and definitely do subscribe and all the nice things. Bye.